Today we're going to be going through all the books that I read in 2024, and I'm going to be ranking them from least favorite to most favorite, I think, and I'm going to categorize it by the rating as well. A couple notes before we get started. I'm going to not be including nonfiction within the star ratings, but I'll tell you the books I read. I also am still in the middle of 2 books. One of them is nonfiction, one of them is fiction, and I will be adding those in. Well, I'll be adding the fictional one in after I finished it. Alright, for nonfiction, I'm Glad My Mom Died, which that book was, I loved it. However, I also was like kind of very triggered by it, not gonna lie. So I read Finding God in the Land of Narnia. This is basically a Christian nonfiction where it's going through all of the, what's the word for it, like the parallels between the stories in Narnia and the Bible, and it was a very interesting read. One book I read really early on this year that I absolutely loved, if I was like actually gonna give it a star rating, it was definitely 5 stars, and that is Feel Good Productivity. It's by Ali Abdaal, and he is a productivity YouTuber that I've followed for years. This book was phenomenal, and I would recommend it to anybody. Also, if I'm talking weird, I'm getting sick right now, so love that for me. And then I'm in the middle of one book. It's called Digital Liturgies. I haven't gone very far through it. I do know I'm going to finish it before the end of the year, but it's basically about how the digital age has affected Christians, and it's kind of depressing. Alright, now we're into our fiction. This year, I made the goal at the beginning of the year to read 12 fictional books, and I read a lot more than that. This year, I read, once I finish the 2 books that I'm in the middle of, I will have read 40 books for the year. I really got into reading, and it's been my absolute obsession. That's why I kind of am changing all my social media into book content. I have my book talk now. This is gonna be a book channel, so anyway, let's get going through the fictional books. Starting with my 1 stars. There was no 1 stars this year. I DNF a book before, I will give it a 1 star, and I'm not talking about my DNFs today because I don't really want to. So, we're gonna start with my 2 stars. First up, we have a book that I just read. It's called The Christmas Bookshop. I should have DNF'd this book, but I was trying to get to my 40 books read this year, so I completed it. And honestly, it felt like a waste of time. The next one is How to Walk Away by Catherine Center. I wish I would have walked away from this book. It's just really, honestly, 2 stars might be a little harsh, but I hated the writing style so much. She's constantly saying and duh and that kind of speech within the writing, and I really just couldn't stand it. So maybe if there's any other Catherine Center books you guys recommend, let me know, because I read that one and I was like, I'm never reading her again. But maybe I could be convinced if someone tells me that there's one with a better writing style. I don't know. Now we're on to our 2.5 stars. We have Fourth Wing up first. I did not like Fourth Wing. I know this is a book that so many people love. I've made a couple of videos about this, but I just did not like this book. I am someone also who skips spice scenes, and this book made it hard to skip those because they're just so, I don't know, I just really didn't like this book. I think the concept was interesting of the school where you learn to ride dragons, and it's kind of like a military school. It's an interesting premise, but I didn't like the execution. Now we have Jackpot Summer. This is one that I read actually in a vlog. Didn't really like it that much. It's about a family who wins the lottery or wins the Powerball or something, and it's just kind of it's like a character study, but I just didn't really enjoy it that much. The Last Time I Lied by Riley Sager. This book I was expecting to love. I don't know. I feel like the payoff at the end, it's a thriller. The payoff at the end was not great. I hardly even remember this book, to be honest with you. Thank you for listening. Now this book, there's parts of it that I enjoyed. I really liked I'm trying to remember it. I read it so long ago, I don't really remember, but the main character was wanted to be an actress or something, and her best friend becomes a famous actress, but something happens where she's deformed in some way, and she becomes an audiobook reader, I think. And I, for the most part, liked this, but again, don't read spice, and this book was difficult to try to skip over because it wasn't specific scenes, it was just that vibe all throughout. But yeah. Then we have Legends and Lattes. I thought this book was pretty cute, but there's a couple things I didn't like about it, and it is very, very cozy fantasy. And I think I've learned this year that I don't really prefer cozy fantasy. I like it to be, actually, I have a hard time with fantasy in general for the most part, but it's about this character who, in a fictional world, starts a coffee shop for people who, like, in a town where nobody has tried coffee before, and like, I loved the business building aspect of it. That was cute. Now we've got our 2.75s, Beg, Borrow, or Steal by Sarah Adams. This is a book that I got as an ARC copy, and I really wanted to love it because I have a couple other her books I've read this year, and I liked them. This one didn't do it for me. It also hasn't come out yet, by the way. It comes out in January, but I don't know. Again, there was like some like certain spice elements or like things that the character said that just cringed me out so much that I couldn't deal. But I mean, if you're reading the series, like it's part of the When in Rome series, so if you're reading those and you care about the characters that it's about, then, you know, go for it. Then we have The Dead Romantics. I thought I'd like this because, honestly, amazing concept. It's this girl, she can communicate with ghosts and like falls in love with the ghost man, but also like fall in love with the ghost man is not very, I had a little bit of a hard time with it, and it also just kind of bored me. This is one that I had a hard time getting through. I will say though, the spicier scenes are pretty easy to skip in this one. Moving on to our 3 stars. I read this cute little cozy mystery called Twice in a Blue Moon, and this one, I just thought it was cute. It's like one of those classic mysteries with a detective and they're trying to figure out the mystery. Like, just nothing really noteworthy, just enjoyable read. I think I got it from like Goodwill or something. So this is Love. This is a Cinderella retelling, but it's really like very specifically, I think it's actually Disney. So it's like, it follows very closely with the story, but it's like if one thing didn't happen and then the story going from there. It is actually pretty cute, especially if you like those fairy tale stories. Better than the movies. I also gave 3 stars. I really also wanted to love this one because I know so many people loved it. It could be that I'm just not a YA reader anymore because like I'm 23, I can't relate to the like high school experience, but there was parts of it that were good and I still would recommend it to many people. Now we've got When in Rome by Sarah Adams. This is the first book in that series. This one was pretty cute. This is about a famous singer and she gets stranded in this small town. Her car breaks down. She ends up staying with this guy, and I won't say anything else because I think it's a very cute little romance. 5 Survive by Holly Jackson. I read this book after reading A Good Girl's Guide to Murder because I liked that one a lot, as you'll see later. It wasn't that good, but honestly, I would still recommend it to somebody who wants to read just a quick little thriller. It all takes place in one night, which I think is a fun part of the concept as well. Then She Was Gone. I read this because I really loved another book by Lisa Jewell, which you will hear about later. This one didn't hit for me. Can't even really remember it. I mean, as I was reading it, it was a nice time. Like, I was like, oh, this classic thriller, but I wouldn't say it's anything noteworthy. Now we're on to our 3.5 stars. First up, we've got The 7-Year Slip. This was really highly rated for a lot of people. I have a feeling if I reread it, I may like it more. As it was now, I read it. I actually listened to this one, which also could have been an issue because I didn't love the voice narrator for it. But yeah, I think if I tried to reread this, it might get a higher rating. The cheat sheet. Honestly, this one should probably get a higher rating. This one had me giddy. This one had me like kicking my feet. But I think when I first rated it, I just didn't give it a higher rating because I was being too harsh on the writing, because it's very simplistic, but that's kind of how Sarah Adams writes. And it's one of those like what people call like a palate cleanser book. You just read it so fast and it's so cute. Yeah, I would recommend this one. It's like best friends to lovers story. I thought it was adorable. Now we're up to our 4 stars. We're getting into our like best books of the year territory. First up, we have a novella, Two Can Play. This is an adorable little Christmas novella. Pretty spicy, but like you can skip those scenes. I'm not sure if this one is in a physical copy at all. I think this might actually just be an audiobook. As far as I know, listened to this one in one day and it was so cute. It is about some game developers, which I loved. The Storied Life of AJ Fikry. This was a very cute, cozy read. Also will probably make you cry, which are my favorite kind of books. So I do remember this book kind of putting me into a reading slump, but I think it's because I read it, like I forced myself to read it, but it still was really good. I was reading it for a video that I actually never ended up posting, But book lovers, so far probably my least favorite Emily Henry book. It might need a reread, but it still got 4 stars. Also, I feel like when people talk about this book, they never actually give any details to it or say anything about it. It's about a girl or a woman. She's like, I don't know how old she is, like late 20s maybe, early 30s. She works in the literary space and she ends up going to a small town with her sister. While this is a romance, it's also a story about sisterhood, and it definitely made me cry, I will say, as every Emily Henry book has done. Next up we have Tress of the Emerald Sea. This is my first and only Brandon Sanderson book that I've read. I'd like to read some more of his books, but this one was more of a cozy fantasy. It's a standalone. He wrote it for his wife, which is so cute. And it's about this main character girl who, basically the guy that she loves, he gets kidnapped by like pirates or something, and she decides that she wants to go and save him. How cute is that? I think that from what I know, he wrote this because his wife loved The Princess Bride, but she didn't like how helpless Buttercup was, so he made a strong main character female who is amazing. We love it. Then we have The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. This book was, I think, the first book I read this year, and I loved the Hollywood-esque vibe of it. I thought it was very well written, very intriguing. I loved the changing, not POVs, but the tenses. So it's written in like first person and third person and second person, and it goes through the story of this woman who's famous in Hollywood and her 7 husbands, and some other stuff happens. Wouldn't recommend to any of my siblings. All right, we're in our 4.25 stars. First up, we've got Rock, Paper, Scissors by, I think, Alice Feeney. This is a thriller. It's set in Scotland. There's a very snowy vibe. I would definitely recommend reading this in the winter. The plot twist at the end really got me. I did not guess it. This one was really good. The Family Lies. This is a book that isn't out yet. It comes out on January 22nd. I had a great time. This girl, she wants to be a librarian, but she kind of ruins that for herself, and she is looking for a job, and she gets offered a job by this guy who runs this like big corporation type of thing, but he has this beautiful estate, the family estate that he lives on, and she gets asked to come work for them restoring their library. But there's weird things that are going on and multiple different mysteries that are all like slowly coming together for her, and it's really good. I would recommend reading it when it comes out. Next we have Heartless Hunter. I can't wait for the new one. I think it comes out in February. The whole way through this book I was like gonna give it a lower rating, but then right at the end I was like, oh my gosh, yes, I'm so excited for the next book. None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell. What a good book. Great thriller. Literally, I loved it. I also would highly recommend listening to the audiobook of this because it is set as like a podcast. There is really good audio effects and like really good voice acting and stuff in the audiobook. Okay, we're on to our 4.5 stars. First up, we have The Great Gatsby. I'm not sure that I would have kept this as this high a rating. It's a classic. The only classic I've read this year, but it was written very strangely. I don't know, the writing style was odd, but I mean, I had a great time while I was reading it, and I'm really glad to have read it because now I understand the story, and the setting is great. It's like, I think it's in the 20s in like kind of high society. I really liked it, but I could also see why people would not like it. Then we have A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. This was a very cute YA thriller. It's about this girl. I mean, most people have heard about this. Most people know what this book is about, but I think Netflix made an adaptation of it. Anyway, this girl, she is writing her like end of year project in her senior year, and she decides to investigate a murder or a death that had happened previously and try to prove that it wasn't the guy that they think it was. Very good story, good premise. I do think the payoff was not quite what I would want it to be, but it was still pretty good. Then we have What You're Looking For Is in the Library. This is a translated fiction, I think, from Japanese, and it is a very good story. If you're ever struggling in your life with where you are with your career or anything of that nature, I would highly recommend this book. Each chapter is a different character who's going to this library and getting like the answers for the issues in their life, and they're all in very different places in life. Like one's unemployed, one's in a job they don't like, one's like, it's all of that kind of thing, and it's really, really good. Okay, we're down to our last 6 or 7 books depending on the book that I am currently reading. We're up to our 4.75 stars. And we have Project Hail Mary. Guys, this is a surprisingly very, very good read. I did not think I would like sci-fi like that, but this book, I've heard from so many people that they love it even if they're not a sci-fi reader. Like, I think about this book all the time, and I love this book. I recommend it to literally anyone. It's one of those kind of books where you can literally recommend it to anyone in your life and they'll probably like it. You could tell your grandma to read it. You could tell your little brother to read it. You could tell your cousin, your sister-in-law, whatever. Anybody in your life will probably like this book if they like reading. It's about a guy who wakes up and he's like in a spaceship and he does not know why he's there. It just goes from there and he's trying to discover who he is. It's such a good book. I want to reread it. I for sure am going to reread that at some point. Then we have Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. Guys, I loved this book so much. I originally gave it 5 stars, but the more I thought about it, it's probably more of a 4.75 stars, but it's just such a good book, such a good romance. I know everybody says this, but the boyfriend in there, Justin, he is the epitome of if he wanted to, he would. He is such a acts of service, remembers things about her. I don't know, it's so good. If I had any critique about it, the female main character is not as fun to read about, but also I understand where she's coming from and why she reacts certain ways, and I think it has one of the best depictions of mental health struggles of any book that I've ever read. All right, we're in our 5 stars. 5-star reads. Oh my gosh, I have had a total of 4 5-star reads this year. The book I'm reading right now is Firefly Lane, and I'm pretty sure it's gonna be in this category. If it is, I will insert my talking about it here.
My prediction was absolutely correct. Firefly Lane was 5 stars all the way. I do actually have a mini vlog of it up on my channel if you would like to go see me reading it, and also my review is live. But yeah, very, very good story. Made me cry more than any book has ever made me cry. Highly recommend, especially to women. But you should definitely check trigger warnings, and I don't recommend it to a younger audience.
The Housemaid by Freida McFadden. I've never read a Freida McFadden book. This book had me the whole time. Like, from the first sentence all the way through the end of the book, I was so in this book, and I wanted to read it whenever I wasn't reading it. I also was horrified by the ending, and it literally made me sick to my stomach, but I also was just like, it was so well written, so good, that if I'm recommending a thriller to somebody who's not too afraid to get like scared, not even scared, it's more like just horrified that somebody could do something like this, I'd recommend it. 5 stars. Next up we have Daisy Jones and the Six. Please, I put off this book for so long because I didn't know if I'd like it, but it's so good. It's rock and roll in like the 70s, 80s. It's very like, there's so much dilemma of like choices you make, making mistakes, making the right choice, love, friendship, working as a team. This is a good book. It is so good. I would say probably check content warnings, and I wouldn't recommend it to kids, but yeah, this one was really good. Okay, we're up to our top two books of the whole year. Number 1, or number 2. Number 2, my second favorite book of the entire year was Tomorrow, Tomorrow, and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. I think about this book all the time, and I want to reread it so badly. It is genuinely one of the best books on character study. There's teamwork in building this game together. I loved every single character. They were flawed in the best ways. Like, they were, I mean, this is a literary fiction, and it really just, it's such a good book. When people say that they don't like this book, I don't understand. Like, maybe they just didn't get it, because it was so impactful to me. And there's stuff in it that I definitely disagree with. There's characters I disagree with what they do, but it's like, that's also part of what makes a good book. You don't want to agree with every character. You want to hear all the different sides and see how the things that they do affect each other. And yeah, I don't know. Very, very good book. And my top book of the whole year, Happy Place by Emily Henry. The way that I cried my eyes out at this book, the way that I actually cried for so much of it, and it's like every line was so impactful. I felt everything that the characters were feeling. I think about it all the time. I highlighted the crap out of this book. I loved it so much. There are a few spicy scenes in this book, but I skipped them. I don't know how intense they get, but I think they were fairly easy to skip because that's what I did. Such a good book. Oh my gosh. I could like rave about this book all the time. It is a second chance romance, which I know a lot of people have an issue with, but I don't know. I loved the way it was done. I think it was incredible. That's a wrap on my year in books for 2024. I really wanted to make this video so that I could have this as a memory to look back on and see how I grow. And if you guys want to follow along on my reading journey, you can subscribe. I am going to be posting videos on this channel, but I'm mainly going to be posting like daily videos on TikTok with my yearly challenge of 100 books in 2025. So if you want to follow along there, this is my handle. It matches this channel as well. So that's it. I hope everyone had a great year and a happy new year, and I will see you guys in my next video. Okay, bye.